Hello, I'm Justin Wakefield, and Ron Silva, David Vester, and I have this presentation on Chapter 2, which talks about flow in the workplace. And here's a basic overview of those principles of flow. They are to make the work visible, limit the work in process, reduce batch sizes, reduce the number of handoffs, continually identify and elevate our constraints, and eliminate hardships and waste in the value system. So the first principle is to make our work visible. If you picture a company, that deals with physical product, it makes it simple and easy to see what is happening with it, where there could be a bottleneck or what is going on, halting the process. In the digital world with technology, it's kind of invisible and makes it hard to see what is doing what and what's stopping the work. So one way to help us see where work is flowing is to make a Kanban board or a sprint planning board. Here's an example to the right, where you can put what you need to do, and you can put what is in progress, when it is done, what is being developed, and you can kind of see where all your digital stuff is going and what's happening. So the next principle is to limit work in progress. Studies have shown that people who multitask, they have worse success than if they were to work on things one thing at a time. So this first bullet point, it says, studies have shown that time to complete tasks such as sorting shapes significantly degrades when multitasking. So if you make that more difficult and you throw in the cognitive complexity of this work, it's just going to be far worse. Multitasking can be limited to using Kanban boards to manage work, and enforcing work in progress limits for each column or work center that puts an upper limit on the number of cards that can be in a column. So if you imagine this, you could put, say, 3 cards in a column, and you can't add any more cards until those 3 are done. And so if people are waiting around for things to finish, they can help out with those 3 cards, get them finished so you get more on the table. That makes the work easier to complete, and it makes it so more people don't need to multitask and not be as efficient. Multitasking happens when people are assigned to multiple different projects, and it leads to many prioritization problems. Limiting work in progress makes it easier to see problems that prevent the completion of work. So it makes it easier to pinpoint what is happening because you don't have 100 different things you're looking at. You just have, it's within those 3 cards you have that you're working on.
Hey, this is David Vester. The next slide in our presentation is to reduce batch sizes. And this is talking about mass production versus single piece flow of a particular work set. In order to shrink lead times and increase quality, you must strive to continually shrink batch sizes. A couple examples from the chapter were talking about car manufacturing and how if you were trying to make a bunch of door panels, the setup and configuration time to stamp those panels might take days, and then once that setup is done, they will then do a large batch of door panels and produce 100 of those panels before those can be moved down to the next step in the flow. And the issue with that is that the large batches create sudden high levels of work in progress and massive disruptions to all the downstream work centers, resulting in poor flow and poor quality outcomes. So if there's an issue with those panels, they don't know until all the panels have been released to the next group. And then if they're having a quality control issue, there's nothing that can be done about it. They have to go back and have those panels retooled. One of the other examples that they gave in the chapter was about like a newsletter mailing simulation. So you've got 4 steps to mailing a newsletter, such as folding the paper, inserting the paper into an envelope, sealing the envelope, and then stamping the envelope. And in the large batch workflow, you would do all the first steps, move on to the second step, do all of those for those newsletters, and then the wait time to get a final or first product ready is much longer because you don't have a first product until you start the 4th step there, versus if you're doing a single piece flow, you do each step one time, and then the wait time is much less, and if there's any kind of issue with those steps, that can be discovered much sooner. The batch sizes is the unit at which work products move between stages in a development process. The larger the change going into a production, the more difficult the production errors are to diagnose and fix, and the longer they take to remediate. The next slide talks about reducing the number of handoffs. So each time the work passes from a team to team, we require that there's all sorts of communication that happens right between those groups. There's requesting and specifying, signaling and coordinating, and often prioritizing and scheduling, deconflicting, testing, and verifying, right? So there's a lot of work that goes in between a batch of work that moves on to the next group. So even under the best circumstances, some knowledge is inevitably lost with each handoff. With enough handoffs, the work can completely lose the context of the problem being solved or the organizational goal being supported. To mitigate these types of problems, we strive to reduce the number of handoffs, either by automating significant portions of the work or by reorganizing teams so they can deliver value to the customers themselves instead of having to be constantly dependent on others.
Continually identify and elevate our constraints. To obtain a great benefit for our work in a sustainable way, we must identify and improve the constraints that limit us to achieve our object. This limiting factor or the slowest step are called constraints or bottleneck. In any kind of the process, the speed of the progress is going to depend on the slowest step. The way to balance the process is to accelerate that step, trying to work to the limit of its capacity to accelerate the entire process. When you have one constraint, the work is spilled up just before the next, producing a plug that creates a downtime after it. To identify and eliminate this constraint, we must be focused on 5 steps. The first one, identify the constraints. We need to identify where are the real constraints in our system. The second step here, we have to maximize the throughput of the constraints using the results that we have available to improve this process. Subordinate and synchronize the constraint. In this step, we focus on the process that don't have constraints, and we can manage in function to help the other constraints. Elevate performance of the constraints. Here's the step where we implement the changes that necessary to break the constraint. All these changes need to be effective and good enough to find the solution. Repeat and process. If the constraint is broken, we need to find and eliminate the new constraint. If the constraint is still there, it's a need to verify the process and found a better way to avoid the constraint. To be focused on the weakest part of the one that is the real constraint will allow us to have an improvement that will impact our performance. Eliminate hardship and waste in the value stream. Lean more than one method is a philosophy or way to think for continuous improvement, maximizing the value of the product with the minimal consumption of resources, eliminating the waste. Tachi Ono between 1950 and 1980 developed a method that allowed the people, the machines, and the whole environment could work together using technique and process that allowed to do effective job, eliminating the waste that will affect the production. There are 8 types of waste that we must identify in order to be able to do an effective job. Number one is partially done work. Any work that is incomplete, is wrong or unnecessary, is wasting valuable time for the development process. Extra process. Any extra work that is not necessary or doesn't now add any value to the product and is no value for the customer is a waste time. Extra features. Any feature that is not necessary and doesn't give any value to the product is a waste. Task switching. The staff sometimes are assigned to the wrong project or training is not the right one for that they will need. Waiting for the late project or information to complete the work may affect the other part of the team. Motion. Time is lost when it's difficult to move from one side to another or lack of communication between the members of the team. Defect. Being wrong, giving information or using the wrong tools or wrong product, we waste time doing the correction action. No standard or manually work. Many times the right tools are not used for a specific job, or we have tool or machine that help us to automate the work, but we don't want to use it. By identifying these ways and working as a team to eliminate this bad practice, we will be maximize the value of the product in an efficient way to benefits of the company and the customer. The efficiency of this method depends on the commitment of each member of the team. Success depends on teamwork and the flexibility to adapting this change. Thank you very much.